Welcome to another exciting episode of Explore Hayat. Get ready for an electrifying conversation.
If you look at all of the highest performing athletes in the world, Usain Bolts of the world, the Virat Kohlis of the world, the Mohammad Salahs of the world, the validation or the accolades that we're seeing are coming after they've already achieved a certain excellence in life. Change is painful. Because change is painful, a lot of people, even if they begin, do not persist.
Khabib said once there was a time that he was about to be choked, and he was saying, how I'm gonna be choked when my father is sitting and he's looking at my fight.
Yeah.
He never lost any fight in his life.
The first person that needs to believe that you're capable of so much more in life is you. I believe is one of the most inspirational stories of the past decade, if not more. Arshad Nadeem. Most stress in life comes from either dwelling in the past or thinking about a future that may or may not manifest itself. Do not be afraid of taking risks in life. If you don't take that risk, you might be missing out on the biggest opportunity of your life. The most relevant moment in life is right now. You find yourself in an elevator and you press the 40th floor. The next thing that a lot of people are doing are taking out their phone. Why?
The more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I?
Is it knowledge?
No,
Am I even remotely close to what the answer is?
not at all.
Okay, I told you. I think I would probably like to coach Steve Jobs.
Our guest today is a powerhouse in the world of leadership and emotional intelligence. With over 350 global training interventions under his belt and a career that spans banking, corporate finance, and coaching. He has led teams managing hundreds of millions in assets, helped shape nationalization programs in the GCC, and has inspired thousands of professionals with his high energy, high impact approach. Whether you are looking to elevate your customer service game, sharpen your leadership skills, or master emotional intelligence, today's episode will leave you motivated and ready to take action. Let's dive in and welcome the dynamic Masam Ali to the show. How are you, Masam?
I'm great. How about you?
I'm great too. Thank you very much to be in our show today.
Thank you. It's my distinct pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Lovely. So just for our audience, would you like to just tell us briefly, who is Masam Ali Malik?
Wow, that's a loaded question. Who am I? I guess there's different ways that I would probably define myself. I am a father of a beautiful 7-year-old girl. I am blessed to have a beautiful family, a wife that loves me. I am blessed to have a business partner that I consider to be one of my best friends. And I am an amateur cricketer as well. So I like to play cricket. I think I presume myself to be better than I actually am. So I guess I'm a bit of a tragic when it comes to that. In my professional life, I'm actually a CFA. I'm a Chartered Financial Analyst. I got my designation all the way back in 2012. When I think about that, it actually makes me feel a little bit older than maybe I am. Throughout my career, I actually worked in the financial services industry. I used to work for Air Canada as a corporate analyst as well. Thereafter, I switched over to wealth management. I did that for a few years as well. And then one day, I decided that I wanted to do something different. So back in 2013, I moved from Montreal, which was home for me, to Dubai to become a management consultant. So we've been doing that for the past almost about 11 years. Right now, I'm a partner, founder, and shareholder in an organization called CLD MENA, which is part of a much larger organization that is called CareTech. And we are loving what we're doing.
Wow, sounds very interesting. You have had an impressive career across banking, corporate finance, and now training and coaching. What was the turning point that led you from managing financial portfolios to transforming individuals and organizations through training?
A lot of the time, people ask me this question because, as you can presume, that CFA is one of the hardest designations to get in the field of finance. I spent thousands of hours of study time in trying to get that. And when people find that out by saying, well, you're a CFA, but you are a trainer, a coach, you are an entrepreneur now, what happened? I don't think there was one point of inflection. I think there were several different points in my life which kind of led up to that decision point, that node back in 2013.
Yeah.
I was doing pretty well. I was working at the Bank of Nova Scotia. I was one of the youngest directors in the history of the bank. And if I would have kept at it, I would have probably done relatively well for myself. But at that point, there was an opportunity that came up in Dubai. Okay. And back then, Dubai was getting onto the map back in 2012 and 13 as well. Everybody was talking about Dubai. And when this opportunity presented itself, it was a huge dilemma for me because it was significantly different than what I had done before. I had a team reporting to me. I was pretty comfortable in my skin. I had lived in Montreal for the better part of my life. I actually grew up I was born in Lahore, Pakistan. Okay. So I spent the first 14 years of my life over there. But the other formative years of my life were actually spent in Montreal. So that is where my family and my friends were. And I remember standing at the window of my bedroom in February 2012. And there's a snowstorm outside. And I'm trying to consider if I want to make the move to go to Dubai and do something that I've never really done as a career before. And I remember telling myself, if I don't make this move, I am not going to move ever. If I don't take this risk right now, there was a gut feeling that I had that if I do not get myself out of my comfort zone, then this might become my life. And again, there was nothing wrong with the life. It was a beautiful life.
Yeah.
There was a lot of great things about what I was doing. I was making good money. I had people reporting to me. I had a career path set in front of me. But there was something in me that told me that I was limiting myself.
You started to feel more comfortable in the position which you were at that time. And it was such a great feeling at that time. And I wouldn't say great feeling, but the things which you really bring a change in your life when you feel that I'm maybe too comfortable and now I have to do something else. And that's the time when you take a risk of your life. I think this is what you did.
Absolutely. And I think at that point, it did not really feel or look as consequential. At that point, it felt like, okay, let's try this out. If it doesn't work, I'll come back. I was having these kind of conversations with myself.
Had a backup plan?
Well, the backup plan was that I had actually taken 6 months off from work.
Okay.
So I actually did not tell them that I was moving away. I hope my old bosses are not listening to this, but I had taken 6 months off, and I wanted to come and try Dubai out. I wanted to see what was great about this place.
Yeah.
And when I sort of had that 6 month period run out, they actually told me they were going to give me another extension for another 6 months. At which point I told them, no, I don't think I'm going to be coming back.
Right.
I think you and I need to move on collectively. But now, 11 to 12 years in after that decision, I sometimes look back at some of the relationships or the friends that I've kind of left back home.
Right.
And I sometimes meet them and I speak to them. And they've done well for themselves in many ways. But the one thing that I continue to sort of feel is that their context about life, their experiences, somehow are a bit limited versus somebody like even yourself, for example, right? You've been to different parts of the world. And just the fact that you've traveled and lived and interacted with different cultures, you have developed different perspectives about life on what opportunities mean and how to deal with problems in life. And I sometimes feel that if you do not push yourself out of your comfort zone, you don't move from your city, or if you don't move from your country, if you don't move, careers, and you don't do something different in life, if you go to the same restaurants, if you have the same friends from same nationalities always, somehow you're not truly unleashing your own potential. So now, can I manage portfolios? Absolutely. Can I do a budget? Absolutely. As a matter of fact, I am functionally the CFO for my organization as well. We just had a board call yesterday about the P&L. But now, can I do things that my other accounting buddies and my finance buddies back in university can do? Yes, absolutely.
Of course, this is something which you realized. This realization point came to you, but you did not know at that time exactly what you were going to do. The way you can say this confidently, that what you have seen and your perspective has changed. So many people, they don't like to come out of their comfort zones because they cannot see what you were not seeing at that time. But you were seeing something different, which pushed you out of the comfort zone. So why people, they don't push themselves out? They can't see at all, or they see, but they're too much in comfort, or something is holding them back?
That's an excellent question. Over the past almost about 12 years, I've had the distinct pleasure of working with almost about 500 different organizations across 38 different countries. And through coverage of about 120,000 people in different ways, it boils down to a couple of lessons that I've learned for myself.
Very nice.
So the first lesson is that human beings don't like change.
Yes.
And again, I'm not the first person to actually discover this truth. It has been there since time immemorial. But human beings don't do well with change. So there's a part of us that wants to remain in our comfort zone. People want to eat healthier. People want to, have career changes. People want to take on different skills. You want to do a lot of things in life, but unfortunately, most people don't end up getting there. Just wanting to change is not enough. There's a part of you that is holding you back, and that's human. That's not you or I being lazy. We're just human beings. So that's the first lesson. The second lesson that I've actually learned over the past 11 odd years, specifically when it comes to human capital development and behavioral change, is that change is painful. Because change is painful, a lot of people, even if they begin, do not persist. So change and persistence go hand in hand. So some of the most successful leaders that we've worked with, some of the most successful professionals that we've come across, they seem to be resilient. They seem to be persistent. They have what we call the grit factor. They might not be the smartest, but they are definitely not giving up. So I think some of the individuals that I come across, and we do a lot of executive coaching as well, they sometimes will ask us, what is the key to behavioral change? And the two lessons that I've shared with you are exactly the two different keys to the same lock.
Beautiful lesson in it. This is so true. When you look back at almost a decade-long experience in banking and finance, so what are the key lessons? Of course, you mentioned about them, but coming back from the banking and financial background, and now transition is becoming as a master coach and trainer. So what is that in it?
So what I continue to remind myself of is that you are not even aware of your potential. As a person, you are not aware of your potential, and what you think you are capable of, you're probably underestimating yourself.
Right.
And these lessons I learned over these different transitions that I had in life. I've moved countries several times. I have faced different challenges. I have faced failures in life as well. And what I've learned consistently from them is that you will continue to surprise yourself on the upside. You will not disappoint yourself if you believe in yourself. A lot of the time when you have individuals working with different trainers or coaches, those coaches are technically paid to believe in you, right? That's their job. They're going to tell you that you can do better and you are capable of so many more things.
Right.
But why wouldn't you believe in your potential? The first person that needs to believe that you're capable of so much more in life is you. And once you've made that realization, then everything else becomes more effective. So over the course of these different transitions in life, I've actually found this out for myself, where I was a very smart financial analyst. And then I was a very smart money manager. But then when I had a chance of this transition, then over the past 10, 11 years, I've actually become a master trainer as well. And if somebody would have said this to me 15 years ago, when I was studying really hard for my CFA, when I was working for Air Canada as a financial analyst, that I'd be sitting in Dubai in 2024, having done several thousand hours of consulting and training, I would have probably laughed them out of the room. A lot of the time, we are the first people who limit our own selves. Other people will sometimes doubt you. That's okay. But it is never okay for you to doubt your own self.
People that doubt themselves, do they look for some endorsement from others?
Now, that's a very interesting question that you raise. And human beings in general are a product of their nature and environment. If you have people growing up that were installing a positive self-image in you, then a lot of individuals will grow up into young adults and professionals that probably don't need that validation because they already believe that they are working hard. What they're doing is with a lot of dedication and sincerity. And if results are not what they need to be, well, then, they'll continue to work at it till they achieve it. If a child growing up is only given feedback when they have failed, or they're admonished when they don't do well on a test, and they're never really given positive reinforcement for everything else that they're doing good in life, then sure, these children will grow up into people who are always looking for validation in life. And I think in general, human beings like to be loved. I think that's a feeling that most people would like. But for people who constantly look for certain validations in life, I think if you look deep enough, you can probably trace that back to a certain childhood environment that they grew up in.
Right. As long as you're looking for validation of other people in your life, you're not ready to move forward, probably not ready to do lots of things because you are mostly thinking about other people. What are they going to say? What are their opinions? So you are looking for those validation. But at some stage, people, they start doing something. For them to be consistent and being persistent in doing something, they are also looking for appreciation.
Yeah.
And if they don't get much appreciation, then how would you distinguish in these two?
I think I would probably answer that question by another question to you, actually, because I would love to be able to hear your thoughts about it. You obviously interviewed a lot of people. You've met a lot of successful professionals in life as well. Do you feel that these individuals, which probably are examples of a certain level of success in life, do you feel that they are looking for validation?
If you ask my opinion, I see in different way.
Okay.
People, those who are successful people, they don't look for any validation. But when they do something, they get appreciation, they get more motivated probably. Appreciation helps you to enrich you to do that thing what you're already doing to improve it further. So not to start at the starting point, because of the validation, probably people, they don't jump into something to start something. But once they do it, and they continue doing it, they definitely look for some sort of appreciation. Look at any top singer. You go, if he's singing, and the big concert, and people just sitting like this, and how do they feel?
Yeah.
They enjoy when people, they enjoy. That's kind of appreciation. You go for the personal training. You got a master trainer. How do you see? No feedback is coming from people?
Yeah.
And at the end of this, you always want to have some feedback. How was that? Could you really learn something out of it?
Right.
So this kind of appreciation helps. Could I answer your question?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's a very interesting perspective because validation comes in different ways. Modern day validation comes from likes and subscribers and comments, right? Validation can come in forms where sometimes it is very unique to you.
Yeah.
So I think all people are looking for some sort of validation at the end of the day. It just differs from person to person in the sense that I might not need validation from anybody in my life except my father, for example.
Yeah.
Or somebody might need validation from their boss, or somebody might need validation from their children or their wife. So I think there are certain people in our life that we don't ever want to disappoint. I don't know if we can call that validation, or we can call that just making sure that these people are always happy with us, right? However, there's another spin that I would probably want you and your audience to actually think about. You look at high-performing athletes. We have the example of, which I believe is one of the most inspirational stories of the past decade, if not more, Arshad Nadeem. So Arshad Nadeem has done something that has never been done in the history of a nation of about 250 million people.
Yeah.
So he's achieved the gold medal when it has never been done before. And there are countries that have been trying to do that for a while. And this guy, with almost no support from the middle of nowhere, has been able to achieve this highest accolade in life. What validation did he get up until that point?
Up until that point,
right?
Because after that,
Exactly, because after that, yes, everybody is standing in line to congratulate him, right?
Sure.
Success has a lot of fathers, failure is an orphan.
Yeah.
So there are, some other athletes that went alongside him in the contingent as well. Nobody's talking about them.
No.
But for Arshad Nadeem, everybody is lining up to congratulate him. But the question is, what kept him going up until that point where he won the first medal? So I understand that he had won certain accolades before. So he went to the Asian Games, he went to the Commonwealth Games, because I've been following him for a while now. And I understand that before, at that medal, people's expectation went up. Last Olympics, he was, I think, number 4 or number 5. But what about before that? Where was the crowd? Where was the applause? It was not there. And if you look at all of the highest performing athletes in the world, Usain Bolts of the world, the Virat Kohlis of the world, the Muhammad Salahs of the world, the validation or the accolades that we're seeing are coming after they've already achieved a certain excellence in life. But how do you get there? How do you get there when the crowd is not there, when nobody's cheering you on, when nobody's telling you that you are the best in the world? So that's the first perspective that I want to give to you, and it's food for thought. It's just, something that I would like you and your audience to consider. And the second thing is, these high-performing athletes, these celebrities, they get booed, right? Sometimes they don't do well, and the world comes crashing down. An example is Babar Azam, who's one of the premium batsmen for the Pakistani cricket team, right? And right now he's struggling. And people around the world are seeming to turn on him. Now, this is a high-performing athlete who was, and probably still is, one of the best in the world. How does a person which used to live in a world of love that has now turned into hate continue to be in a state of mind where they can compete and perform at the highest level? So, validation, sure, is important. Not letting people down in your life that are important, absolutely important. But when you are trying to achieve a certain level of excellence in life, when you're trying to achieve what we call the Olympic standard, or you're trying to achieve being the best of the best, I think validation and accolades become a lot less important.
Yeah. I agree with you. And once you mentioned about for your case, for example, you said for you the validation is, of course, when you want to hear from your father. This is a beautiful thing. I still remember when my mom, she passed away, and the first thing which came to my mind, for any success which I wanted to bring back home, and first happiness, more than the happiness, was just to announce this to my mother. You see, such a great feeling. And I was saying, who am I going to tell this
That's
now?
beautiful.
So this is the validation which you are getting from your father or your mother, is something which really fortify you, energize you to the extent that you are ready to conquer the world. I still remember I was listening to Habib. Habib said once there was a time that he was about to be choked, and he was saying, how I'm going to be choked when my father is sitting and he's looking at my fight. He never lost any fight in his life. Basically, this is something which is because this is father who is behind him. But then, of course, I was also seeing the documentary on McGregor. When he had nothing in his life,
Yes.
his wife was sitting and appreciating him. She was working, he was fighting.
Yes.
They were just trying to win, just trying to reach some level. He didn't know he was going to be number one. So mother and wife, they supported a lot. So this kind of a validation, this kind of a support, this kind of a encouragement you need from your family.
Sure.
Then it comes to, once you win, you become something, you have a lot of appreciation, you have recognitions and like all those sort of things. So again, it's kind of a complex thing and we are just discussing, we are not proving what is the way right or wrong. But yeah, unnecessary validation does not stop to successful people. They don't look for validation. They know in their mind they are champions. They already know this.
Yes.
They don't really focus on to these petty issues around them or these things. Coming back to your training part now, because this is very important for us to learn and for the audience to learn from you. How do you articulate your thoughts clearly before you start to speak with the large audiences?
There's a concept that is called the flow state. And the flow state is a concept around a heightened level of high performance in anything that you do, where it just happens and you're not thinking about it, so your cognitive brain is not planning the words that are about to come out of your mouth. And this is what we call a high level of performance. So if you go to a concert, a musician goes into this trance where, they just have this beautiful passage of song. Or you go and you watch a sports game and the sports person just does this amazing, series of actions, right? You go to your office and you're just having the best day and everything seems to be working out and you just can't figure out what's working out, right? These are all examples of people going into the flow state. The flow state requires an enormous amount of practice. There are certain, publications that say you want to practice something about 10,000 times so that you can master it. And then the challenge of what you're doing needs to be high as well. When these two things come together, you have the potential of achieving the flow state. Now, I find that I go into the flow state a lot of the time when I'm doing presentations, when I'm doing coaching, when I'm doing speaking engagements to larger audiences. Yeah. So the long-winded answer to your question is practice. Get yourself out there.
Right.
Understand what is required to be able to do an effective communication/presentation to people, and then just do it, and keep doing it till one day you wake up and you are absolutely great at this. And then when you are eventually able to go into the flow state, in not just this, but any other skill in life,
absolutely,
you are doing it without even realizing.
This is so true. I mean, if we talk about the podcast, when I started this podcast, still when I see my initial podcast, still I'm on not the flow state probably, I'm still getting, every time I feel that I'm improving and I have to keep improving until I really reach to that flow state that everything is happening the way you want. So every time there is a room for the improvement, So it comes into everything. You have to reach to that flow state and it comes with the practice, The more you practice, the better you become. So you have to reach that. Okay, now again, we talk about something like appreciation, validation, feedback, recognitions, and all that. What happens when you don't get a very positive feedback and a response from the audience while you are in the middle of the stage and you are just trying to give the best in the good flow state, but they are like this? How do you tackle this state?
It happens sometimes, unfortunately, but I'm a big believer in the following statement, and one of my mentors shared this with me a while ago. What is being said is probably less important than who is saying it.
Okay, yeah.
So if there's feedback coming from somebody in the audience that is only doing this to either disrupt you or for whatever reason has a bit of an ego issue, that can happen sometimes. Ignore, move on. It's just not important. And sometimes I actually use this example in my training when we were talking about emotional intelligence and responses of human nature as well as sometimes you're driving on the road and sometimes you see people trying to overtake each other and sometimes tailgating each other and, sometimes being aggressive. And it makes people upset, right? So if somebody crosses you in traffic and sort of takes the spot in front of you before the exit, it upsets you. Yeah. Some people will speed up, not try to give way. Some people will get upset. They'll roll down their window. They'll try to say something to the other person. If you take a step back and ask yourself this, is this the most important thing in your life? Yeah. Is it worth you being upset even for 10 seconds? There's a lot of other things that you need to focus on in life. You need to focus on your career. You have to focus on your family. There's other real problems or opportunities in life, right? But that particular point in your life, if you let this person get you upset, then you're giving it power, right? And this has absolutely no importance in your life. It has no bearing in the medium to long term where your life is headed. Right. That is the same thing that you need to apply in these sessions. Right. This person right now is saying something because there's something maybe going on in their life. Maybe they're not in a positive stance in life. You don't need to respond to it. Sometimes it might be something that you just nod, acknowledge, and you move on. But the second kind of feedback is more important, where there's actual feedback that might be your blind spot. And it is the hardest thing to accept. When somebody is giving you feedback which you don't even think you need. Yeah. So somebody's telling you that you need to be a better communicator, and in your mind you're a great communicator already. And you're like, what are you talking about? This makes no sense. So in life, there's something called the unconscious incompetence. You do not know what you do not know. Yeah. And people who continue to accept feedback in that box are the ones that continue to improve in life. If you ever find yourself pushing back to feedback before you've given it a few seconds of consideration, you need to check yourself. Because you might actually be living in a blind spot box and you're fighting it because all of us have egos. Right.
Unconscious incompetence you talked about. And this is something which most of the people, they live in this kind of the blind thing which about themselves. And to learn from those things, this is the ego which comes in front, which does not let you learn from someone. You talked about some individual person standing up, not believing, not listening, no good feedback. What about the whole crowd? 300 people, you're giving this presentation. How do you tackle that situation?
Well, maybe you need to be a better presenter if you're starting to lose 300 people. But I think managing a smaller audience is a different skill set. Managing a larger audience is a different skill set. When you are actually speaking to larger audiences, which might be 300 people, 400 people, you have to make sure that your messages are engaging. Storytelling is an advanced technique for presentations and training. And when you start telling people your own stories, people become engaged. So with larger audiences, move away from more theoretical discussions and make it more about stories because people relate to stories. Which actually takes me back to the question that you asked just before about ego. Yeah. Now, ego is the biggest enemy for self-development. And whenever I sort of find myself going down the road where I start looking at, some of the success that I've had over the past few years, I go back and I remind myself of my 16-year-old self when I was working at McDonald's and I was sweeping the floors. And I remember an incident. My manager, his name is Derek Stewart, a great guy. And I don't know if he's going to listen to this, but thank you for everything that you've done, Derek. He asked me to sweep the floor. And this was like my first weekend. Now, this guy is the head manager. And, I had been hired to work in the kitchen. So I thought, why would I need to sweep the kitchen outside, the floor outside? But I did it. I had a few tears in my eyes because I thought that I was really demeaning myself. And I made up my mind. I said, I'm not going to work here. I'm going to find something else which is at my station because I come from a comfortable middle-class family. And, why would I be sweeping floors and bathrooms, right? So I was supposed to resign that week, the following week. But then on one of the shifts that I was doing after, so I used to go to school, and then in the evenings I was doing part-time work there. I was working in the kitchen. It was not very busy. And I saw that Derek, the head manager, looked around, had a few minutes to himself, took out the mop bucket and started mopping the floor outside. And that lesson has stayed with me for now almost about 25 years, where I looked at Derek and I reminded myself that this is the most senior person in this store. This person hires and fires people on a regular basis and has the power to be able to do that. And yet this person has no problem sweeping the floor. Why would I have that issue? So on a constant basis, whenever I find myself, my head becoming too big, which I'm a human being as well, right? Everybody sometimes feels that ego creeping up. I just remind myself of that no work is small. Only your mind becomes small.
Beautiful, beautiful. As long as you learn how to overcome this, your biggest enemy, that's ego. I call it the biggest enemy because this is something which the biggest hindrance in our growth, in our life, in our relationships. This is ego, actually, the biggest hindrance.
Absolutely.
How do you tackle the question when you don't know the answer and still somebody asks you in a larger audience while you are training?
Be honest. Tell them that you don't have the answer, but also tell them that if they are truly interested in getting the answer, that you will research and get back to them.
Brilliant. Yeah, this is the best answer, to be
Absolutely.
honest.
The worst thing that you can do, Kashif, is that somebody's asking you a question that they already know the answer to and you don't.
Yeah.
So if you try to pivot and you try to, try to do a fluff job, they'll still continue to ask you the question. And B, if you try to give them an answer that you think is right and they have the right answer, you're going to lose credibility in front of that audience.
Especially this is for the young ones, the audience who are watching and listening. That's why this is very important for them to understand. If you don't know something, be authentic. Just say, oh, I have to really search for this answer and I don't know about it. People would respect you more than you're just trying to bluff or just saying some wrong answers.
Absolutely.
And since you speak with executives, CEOs, directors, is there something which you pay special attention to or you have to be careful about?
I think when you're dealing with professionals, whether that be within the organization that you work in or whether that be networking, try to maintain a certain level of professionalism in your interactions.
Yeah.
I think senior executives have a lot going on there in their mind. They don't have a lot of time to focus on non-value driven discussions. So when you're spending time with senior leaders in your organization or outside, be very clear, be concise, and be very honest with what you want from that conversation or that relationship.
Right.
Because if you are trying to get a job offer, but you're trying to masquerade that as, a networking opportunity for something else, they're going to see past it. And you won't be able to establish that relationship. So I think being honest, being professional, being concise and straight to the point will do you a lot good rather than doing some of the other things.
Considering these high performers, these CEOs and the directors, and when you are training them about something, they come with a bag filled with experiences, knowledge and all. And when they look at you like this, look who's talking. Do you get sometimes like this kind of things as well? And then they try to make you feel that I know better than what you're even talking about.
I think less now than a few years ago.
Right.
I've now, by God's grace, have had experiences of delivering to a very large number of audiences that are very senior. So over the past 12 odd years that I've been doing this, I've been able to pick up a lot of stories and experiences, right? So a lot of the time what happens is that now, especially when we're delivering sessions, there is a lot of value that I bring to those sessions. So I don't face this as often as I would probably 7 or 8 years ago. What I did 7 or 8 years ago when I was starting off in this, yes, absolutely. There was a lot of people in the room. And the first few minutes of that interaction was all about them trying to establish if you were credible enough or not.
Right.
So if you are doing longer presentations, you are doing trainings that might be a day long and whatnot, specifically in the first part, establish trust with your audience. So trust is based on 4 different metrics. So trust is based on credibility, reliability, intimacy, divided by self-orientation. So this formula is true for you establishing trust with your spouse, with your boss, with your friends, with your parents, with an audience. The more trust you have in a relationship, the smoother things get.
Beautiful.
So my first target in all of my training sessions is to establish a certain level of trust with my audience, so that when I'm sharing information with them, they actually take that not with mistrust, but rather trust.
Right. So what specific lines or sentences or something which you say to make that rapport or building the trust?
So I think the best trainers and the best sort of coaches make it about the audience and not themselves,
Right.
which is where the self-orientation comes in. The session is not about me. The session is about the needs of the people who are sitting over there. And if you truly believe that in the heart of your heart, then you start really focusing on delivering a user-centric experience. So I think that's probably the building block or the fundamental of creating a great training experience. In addition to that, like I said, it's about credibility, reliability, and intimacy. Before you walked into a training room, have you done your research? Do you know about the audience? Do you know about the company that you're dealing with? Do you know why they're sitting in the room? Do you know what their business objectives are? Do you know what they have done in the past 2 years, what they want in the next 2-year cycle? The more information you have about the people who are in the room and the context that they're coming over here, the better you'll be able to establish an intimacy with them. Credibility obviously comes with experience. If you're doing this for the first time in your life, well, your credibility is that you're doing this for the first time in your life. When you do it more and more and more, and you do it with quality, your credibility starts building up. But if you are delivering a session, even if it's for the first time, have you studied this before? Have you done the research? Have you studied the topic, and do you know enough about this to be able to stand over there and deliver value to them? So that would be the credibility side of things. And then reliability is really about doing what you say. If you said you want to start at 9, you better be standing in front of the audience ready to start at 9. If you said we're going to be taking a coffee break at 11, well, you better be planning for a coffee break at 10:59.
Right.
So reliability is about keeping your promises, right? So it is less Kashif of what I say, but rather what I do in these sessions. And before, I used to do it with a lot of focus and deliberateness. Now, when I do it, it just happens. I walk into an audience, and all of this is, remember we said unconscious incompetence? The other side to that is unconscious competence.
Yeah.
So you know it, you have it, you don't even realize it.
Yeah, you just do it naturally.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, practice before preaching. This is something which you're talking about.
Yes.
So how do you speak in a way that sounds like training or coaching, but not preaching?
Yeah. Interesting. I think know your audience, know who you're speaking to. If you're speaking to an audience that prefers the message in a certain way, then translate or start speaking that same kind of tone with them as well. So there's certain audiences where you need to be more professional in your communication, and then there might be some audiences where you can be a little bit more informal. So I think this is probably going to be driven by the audience that you're dealing with. And through that, you can actually adjust the way that you're speaking to them so that the message delivery is clear.
Right. This is a very good answer, actually. How to cut that speaking anxiety, which most speakers have, even though they don't talk about it, but there is always some sort of So how do you cut that speaking anxiety before the speech?
So this actually is called glossophobia. And glossophobia, which is the fear of public speaking, is actually one of the top ranked fears of human beings in general, and it is right next to people drowning and people dying by fire.
Yeah.
So you can imagine that some people, unfortunately, will be standing in front of an audience and they would rather drown or set themselves on fire. So it is truly a very big issue or phobia for a lot of people. So there are certain techniques that you can use. So preparation before a presentation is key. Prepare well, do mock-ups, do it in front of a mirror, and do it several times. Do it in front of some people as well, right? The second thing is that when you are actually delivering to a large audience, try to avoid direct eye contact because it's a very large room. And if you start doing direct eye contact with a large audience, you can actually sort of, get carried away. So one technique that you might have heard before as well is that to look at the top of the head when you are looking at a larger audience. That usually helps. That is not recommended for a smaller audience because that just looks weird. Right? So if you have an audience that is only 10, 15, 20 people, then actually having eye contact is the way to go.
Yeah.
So I actually believe that delivering to a smaller audience is tougher than delivering to a larger audience, actually. Because when you're delivering to a larger audience, you can actually create a sense of divide, right? Because they're in your public space. But when you're delivering to a smaller audience, every single person in that room needs to have a certain connection with you. And that it requires a higher level of confidence and a higher level of experience.
Sure.
So preparation is definitely the key. And when you're actually delivering to a larger audience, like I said, look at the top of the head. And if you still find yourself very, very nervous, then try to transfer that nervous energy into something physical. So, one example that we've shared in the past is that certain speakers will have a pin in their hand. So a paper clip in their hand, and as they are sort of, feeling nervous, they either just clench on it or imagine that nervous energy going into that paper clip. So it is just a technique for you to start focusing that negative energy that you're feeling into some other place so that you can start focusing on the task at hand. So hopefully using some of these techniques, you'll feel less nervous the next time around.
Yeah, this is this wonderful technique, of course, anchoring, which we call it anchoring, and especially in the NLP when we talk about it. Now, you talked about the emotional intelligence, You have spent years of coaching professionals on emotional intelligence. Can you share an example where you personally saw emotional intelligence transform someone's career or life?
I think several examples, actually. Some of them personal, some of them of other people that I've ran into. There's a number of different examples. Most people who have sort of grown up, in the past few decades, unfortunately have not had the kind of nurturing that is required for people to be able to express themselves and then deal with that emotion. So a lot of individuals that you will come across, even people in very senior positions actually, unfortunately are emotionally disabled. So most problems that you come across in life are actually driven by emotions rather than rational thought processes. So one of the things that we share with a lot of our audiences is that solve emotional problems with emotional thinking and solve rational problems with rational thinking, not the other way around.
Yeah.
So when I actually reflect back to some of the examples where emotional intelligence has done wonders and given the kind of results that truly have been better than otherwise. It would be dealing with employees that have had performance issues. When I was at the Bank of Nova Scotia, I had a certain employee who had been in the bank for several years. And she used to perform well, but over the past little while, she had actually started slipping. And when I started having discussions with her about her performance, she understood that there was a need for her to improve her performance. And that, what she was doing right now was not acceptable. So we agreed, and then I walked out of the room. 3 months down the road, nothing had changed. No performance improvement. As a matter of fact, I think it was starting to go down even further. I remember having a discussion with my boss. And he's actually now turned into a personal coach himself as well. And as I was sitting down with him and I was sharing my frustrations about why this is not happening, he kept smiling. And it became annoying to a point because he kept smiling and I kept giving my frustrations to him.
Yeah.
And at one point, he asked me a question that I think was probably one of the turning points in leading the career change that you were talking about. And he said, "Everything that you have shared as instructions, do you think she does not understand? Does she not understand that she's not performing well? Does she not understand that she needs to do better? This is a bank. Yeah. We have certain KPIs and KRAs." I said, "No, she absolutely understands." So he said, "Then why is the change not happening?" And I remember sitting in that room for the next 5 minutes in an awkward silence because I didn't have the answer for that. Because it was an emotional problem. All of my solutions were rational. If it was rationality that could have solved the problem, it would have been solved a long time ago.
True.
So that was a prime example that when I started looking at the problem with a different lens, I was able to arrive at a solution which otherwise would have never happened. So in life, when we see certain frustrations bubble up, when we see certain inefficiencies in life, we should ask ourselves the following question. And maybe the answer is no, but ask yourself this following question.
Actually, ask.
Yes, ask yourself, right? Ask yourself, is there an emotional reason to the problem that I'm seeing? And the answer is less important than the question. Because once you ask yourself your question, what you're doing is you're creating a certain level of awareness for yourself. And once you start creating this awareness about the different emotional needs around you, then your own behavior is going to change.
And if you start to write it, it is said it is better for your understanding. When you start to write, you understand it better, that what the problem is lying behind the whole issue.
Yes.
And you can have a better control on yourself. So the concept of mindfulness, it's gaining traction these days, especially in leadership. So what role do you believe mindfulness plays in effective leadership? And how do you incorporate it in your training sessions?
So mindfulness actually starts at home. So I've just signed on my 7-year-old daughter into a mindfulness ECA, extracurricular activity at school. And I'm so proud of the fact that the school is giving us the opportunity of actually introducing something that was only introduced to me when I was already an adult, right?
Yeah.
So mindfulness is realizing that most stress in life comes from either dwelling in the past or thinking about a future that may or may not manifest itself. That does not mean that you forget the lessons of the past or you do not plan effectively for the future. It just means that the most relevant moment in life is right now. And when you start focusing on right now, then you start focusing on things that are in your control or relatively in your control. You can't change the past. You can only partially impact the future. Then why are we focused not on the now? And that is probably the best lesson for all leadership. So mindfulness, the ability to stay in the now, allows you to access your best abilities. Because you are not worried or you are not stressed about things that should not be occupying your mind space anyways.
So this is beautiful concept, living in the present moment is the most important thing. And, when you talk about the power of now, this is good. You're teaching to your children, your child from the beginning. And we learned quite late. We understood quite late. But bringing this concept to your training programs, corporate training, people are willing and open to learn this. And how do you incorporate it in this mindfulness itself? Do you get some time for meditation or something during the training sessions, some breath work?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different techniques that you can actually use in mindfulness. So, one technique that I recommend everybody that I come across is the exercise of visualization of success.
Right.
So, visualization of success, which is also a high performance technique, is to be able to close your eyes, have steady breathing, and then imagining what success is going to look, feel, and sound like. So this is an exercise that a lot of people are actually not familiar with. It's a very simple exercise. But if you want to be, for example, Kashif, be the best content creator or the best podcaster on the planet, when you get there, what is that going to look like? Is that going to look like a bigger office? Is that going to look like a different suit? Is that going to look like a different house? What is the nameplate on the office? What is the brand? When you close your eyes and when you start imagining what success is going to look like, there's a part of your brain that activates and helps you get there. So this is a mindfulness technique that is actually married with a high performance technique or goal setting technique that I highly recommend. Another exercise that we incorporate in a lot of our sessions is the exercise of the five senses.
Yeah.
So this is an exercise where you become aware of where you are. So, what are the smells that you are experiencing? What are you visually experiencing? What is the auditory input that you're getting? The ability to be able to truly recognize and appreciate what is around you then also allows you to realize that there's a lot that you're tuning out. There's noises in the room that we haven't been focusing on because we're focused on each other. But if you just stop talking and you just listen to the different noises in the room, you'll realize that us two are not the only voices in the room.
True. So
I think mindfulness and such exercises actually help you get there. There's a very interesting concept that we were talking about just before we started the podcast. And you might recall that we talked about distractions in life. A lot of young professionals that I come across these days are people who have actually grown up on smartphones. They've grown up on tablets and laptops. I got my first smartphone when I was starting college. So I did not grow up on a smartphone. It was something that I adopted. So the way that I've learned math, the way that I've learned communication skills is different than the generation that is coming after us, which has had access to this technology in the very first few formative years of their life. So there's something called the attention deficit economy that has taken hold, which means that the most important resource in today's time and age is not oil, it's not technology, it's not even time, it is focus, it's attention. We see people panicking when they can't find their smartphone. And the reason that happens is because the smartphone has become an external hard drive of our brain. You don't remember your numbers. You don't remember, pathways. You don't remember your passwords. You don't remember your appointments because everything is in that smartphone. So that smartphone has become a part of your brain. So that's why you panic when you can't find it.
True.
However, every single person that I've come across, and I ask them, did you receive training on how to use your smartphone? The answer 99.999% of the time is no. Then how do you know that the way that you're using your smartphone is global best practice? Is it even? I also challenge sometimes people who are in my session to tell me the top 3 apps that they've been using in the past 1 month with a accuracy rate of about 5%. And I've actually, bet money on it as well, and nobody's actually ever won. Because you have an idea that you might be using WhatsApp, or you might be using email, or you might be using Facebook or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. But to tell me the exact number of hours that you've spent on that app, nobody's willing to put money on it because most people don't look at it. So we have a major distraction in our life that we have incorporated. This is a beautiful machine that has enabled us to do a lot of things in life. You have the world in the palm of your hand. But if you ever find yourself going like this on Facebook or TikTok, this is not information. This is just data. And a lot of that is garbage. So our brains are addicted to stimulation from the time that we wake up to the time that we go to sleep. There's all of this stimulation that is being bombarded towards our brain. So our brains have become addicted. You find yourself in an elevator and you press the 40th floor. The next thing that a lot of people are doing are taking out their phone. Why? What's going to happen in the next 30 seconds that you need to be connected? You see people parked at the red light, and maybe that's for 1 minute, 2 minutes, and a lot of people are reaching to their phone. Why? Aren't you tired? Shouldn't those 2 minutes maybe an opportunity for you to be mindful or just take a couple of deep breaths? And that is one of the biggest challenges that we're seeing with young professionals and more senior professionals as well.
Yeah, almost everyone, even while eating, while sitting with a family on the dining table, and even in a room when you have nothing to talk about, even if you have something to talk about, but still you're on your mobile phone and everybody is watching, somebody is observing, it looks weird to him.
Yes.
So you have to be aware of your environment, as you mentioned. And once you become aware, you're not a part of the matrix. So immediately you start to find everybody is the part of the matrix. So that's why you woke up.
Yeah. And, for people who have younger children, I think it's even a bigger, I wouldn't call it concern, but area of opportunity.
Yeah.
Because I think, again, the solution is not to vilify the technology. Because I see a lot of parents sometimes trying to take away technology from the children, and that's not the answer, right? We're never going to go back to a time when, technology is not going to be part of our life.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, with artificial intelligence coming in and machine learning coming in, technology is becoming more and more integrated into our life. It is about creating the ability to focus on demand. If you are not comfortable with your taxi driver being distracted when he or she is driving the taxi, or your pilot being distracted, or God forbid your surgeon being distracted if there's a procedure going on, then why are we distracted? Why are we distracted at work? Why are we distracted at home?
Yeah.
And I understand that maybe in a session when I am speaking to my trainees, I'm not the most important person in their life.
Yeah.
I understand that. But if you're going home and the people that you love the most supposedly in your life are speaking to you, and while they're speaking to you, you're on your phone, it's not them, it's us.
Yeah, true. It's not them, it's us. So let's also slow down a little bit and bring ourselves into a different state of mind. So I'm going to ask you in this segment one simple riddle. The more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I?
The more you take, the more you leave behind. I'm not great at riddles, but I will try my best to maybe answer that. Is it knowledge?
No.
Am I even remotely close to what the answer is?
Not at all.
Okay, I told you. There are things that I'm good at and I'm great at, and there's things that I'm maybe not great at. So riddles is not something that I'm great at. But now I'm actually genuinely interested to know the answer. What is it?
Of course, the more you take, the more you leave behind. What am I? I'm footsteps.
Okay. Well, I was trying to go and elevate the discussion. The answer was pretty simple.
Yeah, that's right.
Interesting.
This is the riddle's all about, simple answer. So now I ask you the question, how do you stay grounded and mindful of the footsteps or legacy you're leaving behind in your professional life?
Wow, that's a hard-hitting question. I think I've tried to communicate this more often, but I haven't really done a great job at it. And maybe he's going to hear this for the first time. I don't know. But my father keeps me grounded. I come from a family that was relatively well off, but my father had to struggle. He was a self-made man. and he achieved an enormous amount of success. He was the reason that we settled down in Canada, which allowed us to have some amazing opportunities in life. And he sacrificed an enormous amount to be able to give us that opportunity. So what keeps me grounded is thinking about my father. There's a lot of inspirations that I have in life, and I hope that some of them get to hear this message. I had a teacher back in Pakistan, actually, by the name of Mr. Aslam Gill. He's now settled in the UK. He was the first person in the school network to encourage my curiosity in life. So instead of, a teacher typically, shutting down questions, he used to encourage me to ask more and more questions. And this was quite annoying for everybody else in the class, and I used to ask random questions. But his contribution to my curiosity allowed me to become the person that I am now. And the one person that, again, keeps me grounded is my father. God give him long health and life. I should be saying this directly to him, but I don't. And I think this, again, goes back to men are emotionally disabled. So, we're not really great at having these heart-to-heart discussions with certain people in our life. So I've never really said that to my father, but I am terribly proud of what he has achieved in life. I hope he's proud of what I have achieved in my life as well, because he's always been that anchor, that person that I go back to. And even if I don't tell him this, he's the person that is the first one that comes to my mind when I want to feel grounded.
Brilliant. Good answer. All fathers get very happy with those answers.
Yeah, but these are, again, those answers that probably people feel great about hearing as well. But I hope the audience can actually hear the sincerity in what I'm saying as well.
No, definitely.
I'm blessed to have my parents. I'm blessed to have a loving family in my life. There's a lot of inspirations. I have uncles who are, very important to me. I have friends as well. We are truly blessed to have so many great role models in our life. And one of the things that we have to give back to our family, our society, our community is to become role models for them as well. So when I see myself as a trainer, as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's had a career in finance, I truly hope that this becomes an inspiration for someone. Somebody who wants to become a consultant or a trainer, or somebody who wants to start their business, somebody who wants to do their CFA. If anything that I've said during this podcast can even cause one person to lift themselves up and do something more in life, then I would go to sleep very happy that night.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
There's a whole purpose behind this podcast, as you know, that we want to bring this change in people's life, a positive change. We want to uplift them, even one person, if he could learn or she could learn something from this podcast. That's the whole purpose behind. Now, in this segment, I'm going to talk to you about quick fire round, we call it. It's a short one, but I will be asking a quick questions and you will reply. Favorite book on leadership?
It's not quite a book, but I think Sheikh Mohammed's My Vision is a fantastic read. The UAE in general and Dubai in specific has truly been a great inspiration in my life. And everything that the city has achieved and due to the leadership and their vision is truly motivational for me on whenever I think about growing my business.
Right.
So I highly recommend that book to everybody who's looking for some really strong inspirational quotes.
Best piece of advice you have ever received?
Don't fall in love with your ideas.
One skill you think everyone should master?
Patience.
What's your go-to activity to unwind after a long day?
Spending time with my daughter.
Your favorite city in the world?
Oh, that's a tough one. I have a few.
One best favorite.
If I had no other choices and I only had to end up in one place, I would probably say Lahore.
Lahore.
Yes.
Now second and third.
Second and third. Okay, I like this now. So second definitely I think is going to be Dubai, and number 3 would be Montreal.
Okay.
So
cool.
technically 2 of my original home cities, and the third is my adopted home city. So I'm actually, kind of, traveling between the three.
One thing most people don't know about you.
Oh, wow. You're putting me on the spot. Something that people don't know about me. Something that people don't know about me. So you're actually trying to find out something about my blind spot.
You don't have to think for so long. It's a quick rapid.
Well, I mean, it's a very loaded question. Like, you're asking me to tell your audience something that they don't know about me. I hope there's good stuff that they don't know about me.
Maybe the bad stuff.
Maybe in the second podcast, maybe next season, I'll probably give them that. I think what people don't know about me is that I actually started working at the age of 15. So that McDonald's job at 16 was actually my second job. So I've been working since the age of 15. I have not had any breaks in between. So I essentially have almost about 3 decades, just under, I guess, of experience. Nice. And a lot of people sometimes don't consider experiences before they've had their first proper job, and that's not true. So the experiences that I had at McDonald's, the experiences that I had working at places like Future Shop and whatnot are lifelong lessons that I've kept with me. I tell people that if you've ever managed the lunch rush at a McDonald's restaurant, then you can manage most things in life afterwards.
I agree with that, because one of my friends, he lives in Canada, and he also mentioned the same thing, because you learn so much that it really sets your platform for the future. If you could coach anyone in history, who would it be and why?
If I could coach anybody in history and why, I think I would probably coach Ashad Nadeem. So Ashad Nadeem is absolutely somebody that I have completely fallen in love with. His story is truly inspirational at so many different levels. And I think he can truly become a beacon for a whole generation. Because the most valuable thing that you can give to a people is hope. And I think Ashad Nadeem sits in this unique position where he can give hope to millions, if not billions of people around the world. If I get the opportunity, I would love to be able to coach him on how he needs to realize the brand that he has built, how to be able to maintain that brand, and how to be able to communicate that brand, not just from a commercial perspective, but truly from an impact perspective. I hope he's getting some coaching, and if he's not, then I'm available, and if anybody can get the word out to him, I'd love to be able to work with him.
I love the idea when you talked about Ashad Nadeem, but you missed the point of the history, which I mentioned in my question. Who's gonna be the person in the history?
Oh, so something that has already happened, like historically,
historical,
somebody
maybe
who's passed away, maybe.
Yeah.
Wow, that's I haven't really thought about that. Who would I like to coach? I think I would probably like to coach Steve Jobs. Now, obviously, that is a huge name. That's a person that everybody recognizes. But the more I've studied his life, the more I've realized that he reached certain conclusions in life a bit too late. So from his autobiography and some of the interviews that have been provided after he's passed away, he was a person that maybe valued relationships less in the beginning than towards the later part of his life. And if I ever wanted to coach somebody, I would probably want to coach him in the past, just to be able to help him realize that he was wasting so much time when he was not spending time or working on relationships that were truly important in his life. Yes, absolutely, his legacy is the iPhone and Apple as a company, but he also has a family. He also has friends. Steve Wozniak was his best friend. That's also his legacy. So I think that is probably the person that I would probably want to spend some time with.
But don't you think so? He learned this lesson at the last time of his life?
Yes, he did. And again, this is something that if I was his coach, I would like to work on 10 years before that point.
Oh, yeah. So that's what I wanted to know. What time of his life you were going to
definitely
go to.
before.
Yeah.
Definitely before.
Okay. Looking ahead, what's next for you? What new projects or goals are you most excited about pursuing?
So, from a business or professional side, we're very, very excited about expanding into the region. So Saudi is a market that we have operated in for almost about a decade and a half, and we're starting to expand a little bit more in Saudi. Saudi is transforming. Saudi is going through a change of a lifetime. And what is happening in Saudi will probably never happen in our lifetime again. So that's very exciting for us. So from a professional front, this is where our eyes are. And stay tuned. You'll hear some very exciting news in the next little while as well.
Okay, great. Sounds good. If there is one lasting message you would like the audience to take away from today's conversation, what leadership, customer service, or whatever, emotional intelligence, what would it be?
Do not be afraid of taking risks in life. If you don't take that risk, you might be missing out on the biggest opportunity of your life. So as different opportunities or as different options come in life, take them. Whether that be moving the country, whether that be moving your career, whether that be, leaving your job and starting a business. All of these are scary decisions. All of these are risky decisions. But take risks in life, because that is the true way, or rather the most direct way for you to realize your potential.
Thank you, Masam, for sharing such a valuable insights today. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, make sure to subscribe and stay tuned for more deep dives into leadership, personal growth, and business excellence. Don't forget to share this episode with friends, family, or anyone who can benefit from this knowledge. Let's spread the inspiration together.